reflecting where you were before hiring VAs, what were some of your biggest challenges that you faced in your business back then? Have those challenges improved or changed since the VAs joined your team?
Yeah, so our biggest challenge was previously we used a different company for the overnights and the weekend. And any other company that we've used that specializes specifically in scheduling, while they were very well trained as far as generalizations for scheduling and that sort of thing, they were very limited in what they could do. So they could only work on things up to 2 hours after their shift time, and they wouldn't take anything in advance. They wouldn't help with anything else. They were very limited to just answering phones, taking messages, and reaching out to us when there were problems. And so when we ended up bringing the VAs aboard and switching to Ascension, that actually resolved a lot of that issue. So the three VAs that we have, Cy, Crystalline, and Jess now, are absolutely fantastic. They attend our weekly meeting every week and they'll work on scheduling in advance. They'll work on filling shifts. So if there's some sort of change that happens, they'll work beyond that to get it fixed, staffed, and scheduled. And if they can't, then they send us a note. They're very good about communicating and they're very good about sticking to policy and knowing what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do. I don't have to remind them over and over again. They're actually better about that than my own team here in the office. And ever since we started Wednesday meetings, it's actually improved even tenfold, which was recommended by you guys, but it was too much at first to add that in because I there was just so much going on. I couldn't add in a meeting on top of everything else. But once I was able to actually get the time to do that, it's actually improved everything even more so than it already was. And so I'm extremely satisfied with the team. And we even use you guys for recruitment as well. And my human resources manager works with the virtual assistant recruiter that we have from you guys, Deza. She's extremely happy. So Deza, does all the phone screens, and does all the phone interviews and all stuff like that every single week. And she works really well with Lisa. Lisa works really well with her. She's super sweet. And so that's actually improved recruitment quite a bit as well. And took some pressure off of Lisa because we don't have a main recruiter in the office right now. And so it's actually worked out really well. So it improved in multiple aspects for our team. And then they're really good about adjusting when needed. They take direction really well, ask questions when they're unsure, which is fantastic. I would always prefer questions versus just assumptions. So it's improved quite a bit. I'm actually very happy with the team. And as far as the upper management goes, you guys are really good about making sure that they're meeting their goals on your guys' end as well. So even when I didn't realize that a couple of the VAs weren't working out, you guys made the decision on your own to trade them out, and we even got a better team after that. So I was grateful for your guys' oversight as well. And stepping in when you all saw a problem, when you guys were seeing a problem on your end that even I had kind of seen, but not to the extent that you guys were seeing it. It just built even more appreciation and trust in you guys because you guys do a really good job. And your VAs are very well trained and um, they speak good English and our staff really likes them. Our clients like them. I don't have any complaints about anybody.
Right. That is wonderful to hear, Rhiannon. Thank you so much. It sounds like the VAs have been a great support, and it's great to know they've made a difference with your team. So, Rhiannon, I do have one question regarding hiring us. When you first considered hiring VAs from overseas, did you have any concerns or hesitations? How did we address those concerns and make the process easier for you?
So fortunately for me, you guys were actually a referral from a company in South Carolina, who is also an Always Best Care. She has three agencies, and she actually used you guys for recruitment. And so that's how we started with you guys was hiring a VA for recruitment. And then when I realized that the current on-call team that we had with a different agency was not working out, that was when I reached out to Regina and I said, "Hey, I'm interested in, doing scheduling with you guys. How would that work? What would that look like?" And she did say initially right at the front, she was like, well, she was like, recruitment's our bread and butter. She was like, we're not as good with the scheduling portion of it as we are with recruitment. She was like, but if you want, she was like, but if you want to, try that, she was like, then you're more than welcome to. And I understood after they came aboard what she meant by that, but it's not anything that's not trainable. And your VAs are very good about picking up new information. They're very good about maintaining and not having to ask multiple times. And so the fact that how you guys keep track of everything and how they keep track of everything and all of the reports and stuff like that, it actually was not that hard of a transition with a set of staff that may not have been fully trained in scheduling. And it actually worked out really well because that means that there was nothing pre every single in-home care agency in the nation is different in some way or another. While certain things might be the same, how they process, how they operate, how they do things is always going to be a little different. The idea might be the same, but it may be gone about differently. And so it actually was refreshing to train them specifically in those areas and have them adjust to it. And then when we ended up getting the team replaced and the new team came aboard, which is the three that we have now, they seamlessly blended right in. And it wasn't even like we had any change from the previous staff to the staff that we have now. And if anything, this current staff is absolutely incredible. They're very on top of it. They're very good at communicating. They bring things to us only when, it's important enough to bring it to us. And they're very good about knowing the difference of what can wait till the next day and what actually needs to happen now. And so they're very smart in that sense. As time goes on, I actually value them even more because I know that the phone lines are taken care of and that if, like I'm not glued to my phone all the time. I was glued to my work phone. I never ask, things. And because that other company, they were working for more than one agency, it made it difficult for them to actually know our agency specifically, where the VAs with you guys are specific to our agency. They're with us and they're not bouncing around or confusing different agencies with other agencies. Like we used to get information for a caregiver that called out for a different company and a different client, and I'm like, that's not even our person and I don't even know who that is. And so it's I find it extremely valuable. And now that we have the daytime meetings, they've gotten much more comfortable with the VAs, and so now they all communicate with each other fairly well and seamlessly. So it's actually working out really well because they blend right in with my current staff.
Right. Thank you, Rhiannon. Your confidence means a lot to us, and it's so encouraging that
Mm-hmm.
knowing we made the transition, especially with the scheduling and on-call team. Well,
Mm-hmm.
Rhiannon, regarding the onboarding process, I'm not sure who facilitated the onboarding meeting with you. Was it Sir Reggie or Miss Shai?
So it was a combination. It was Shy and Reggie. And I think it switched back and forth. Honestly, it was a while ago. I There's been a lot going on, but originally I met a lot with Regina, and then once we agreed to go forward with it, then I met with Reggie, and he did a couple of meetings, and then Shy stepped in, and then I started working with Shy more. And the onboarding process was so for the first week, I will say that that's probably the most amount of interaction that you have is meeting with them every day for the first week. But it's important because it actually helps set them up for success. So if you make sure that you know exactly what you're looking for in your VAs and you have that written down on what you need them to do and you have it narrowed down and you give them parameters to work with, it's actually fairly seamless. And while the first month I did get a lot of questions, I actually didn't mind it because it meant that I could establish more of the policies and more of how we were doing things as time went on, and then it was just built upon. And then as time went on, stopped answering less and less questions. Now I may get a message at night maybe once a week. Usually only if it's extenuating circumstances that they legitimately have never come across this, and even I'm going, I don't know how to handle that either. Now it's reserved for that type of stuff. So I actually get more downtime than I used to, which I extremely value.
That's great.
Because for a while there, for almost a year, I was working like every night, every weekend, 24/7. It felt like I wasn't getting a break. Now I'm actually getting more of a break myself as a manager. And even my other managers who were also helping me trying to balance it all out are now able to go home with their families and spend, and only have to worry about immediate emergency situations. So it's taken a lot of stress off of the management within the agency. So we are honestly, and we tell them all the time, every time we have a meeting, we tell them how much we appreciate them because I mean, legitimately, they help us a lot.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm glad you're having, or the VAs are contributing to improving your work-life balance. And,
Hmm.
Mr. Gina is big on the art of delegation. So I'm glad to hear that you're getting the balance. You and your team, all of you are
Hmm.
getting the balance you deserve and exactly the kind of support we aim to provide as well. Rhiannon, how about the tools and resources we provided, like the end of day, end of week, and the SBS processes or the SOPs? How have they impacted your operations? Have they helped improve workflows or keep things more organized?
So yes, we did have them adjust how they were doing certain things. Some of them would send it as a screenshot for their day, and now they actually just copy and paste the thing in there, and it gets sent to my whole scheduling team, plus myself and management. And so, first thing in the morning, that's what my schedulers do is they go over the handoff and they talk to each other about it. And then if they have questions for on call, they even still have a little bit of time to message them as well and ask them questions or that sort of stuff if it's needed, which very rarely it is because their notes are pretty good. I mean, they're pretty good about communication and making the information fairly clear. Only every once in a while do I have to ask for clarification. For the most part, based on what they said, you get a general idea of what had happened. And even with currently, we're having a situation with one of our clients that is causing the whole team to have to kind of step in and communicate with each other very seamlessly and open and clear communication about it because we all have to be on the same page. And so we meet about it every Wednesday. And because of this, the VAs are very, very good about anything that happens, any phone call, any call from a caregiver, the client themselves, whatever the case may be, they automatically send in a message. And it's very much about the facts, about what was said and what was the come. And then if they have a question on how to proceed or something like that. And sometimes it's just informational, like this just happened, I'm just reporting it to you, so on and so forth. And so they're very good about closing that gap of communication and reporting things to us that need to be reported, and then documenting as well. They're very good about documentation, making sure that they're putting stuff into the system, which is difficult for our whole entire staff. All of us forget documentation at one point or another. Nobody's perfect. But they do a very good job. They're actually better about it than my staff. So I I appreciate that I don't have to micromanage them. They work on their own without me constantly having to be on top of them. And which for me is fantastic because I have to be on top of other people quite often. So to have a set of team members that I don't have to constantly worry about is a huge breath of fresh air for me. And it takes a lot of stress off to know that they'll report things that are necessary. They work with my staff very well. They keep open lines of communication and they're extremely helpful, and they also take all guidance and or suggestions and stuff like that. Like Crystalline the other night was asking about offering a bonus because we had talked about bonuses for last minute call offs and accepting last minute shifts and whatnot. And then she reconfirmed me. She was like, well, she was like, so we're going to give them a $25 bonus, but they're getting paid 28. And she was like, that means that we're spending 53. And she was like, we're charging 58. And I was like, you haven't said it already. For the bonus, I was like, don't worry about it. We won't do it on the shorter shifts like that. And she was like, okay. She was like, well, I didn't do anything yet. I was like, well, thank you for saving me from my lack of train of thought at that moment when I said, yeah. So it's stuff like that that they like reconfirm. They're like, are you sure? That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I'm like, you're right. It doesn't make sense. You were perfectly right. We will not do that this way. How about we do it on longer shifts, or we only do it this way? And they're like, okay, well, we can do that. I'll make a note. And then it gets communicated amongst them all. And I don't have to repeat myself 1600 times, which is also extremely wonderful. I actually really like that. fact that I'm not constantly repeating myself because I even do it with my own staff. I love my staff, but there are times like, is it this or is it that? And I don't have to do that with the VA. They document it and then they follow policy from
Mhm.
there. And and unless something is off or it doesn't seem like it's right, then they'll ask. And I appreciate the fact that they do ask when they're like, well, otherwise most people would just do it. Oh yeah, we'll just put this on here and I'll give it to them and whatever, and not even think about the fact that the shift was only an hour, so we weren't making any money at that point. So there was no point in giving her a bonus for that when she's already making so much just going in general.
Well, I'm so
But
glad, Rhiannon, to hear that the communication has been seamless and the reports have been useful for you. They're designed to make things easier for you and your team. So, I have another question, Rhiannon. How would you rate their um, English speaking and overall communication skills? Have they been effective in ensuring clear and professional communication?
So this current team, absolutely. Original team that we had, I did, like I said, there was one of them that did not speak very good English, and so that those two ended up being replaced. The team that we have now, all of them speak wonderful English. They're very clear. I have not had a single solitary complaint from a single client, and we work with seniors. So if anybody's going to complain about not being able to understand anybody, it's going to be our seniors. And I haven't had a single complaint from any of our seniors about them. And they also adored. So we used to have Madeline, and Madeline got promoted to team lead. And so Madeline was always the one that had the best English out of all of them. So everybody adored her original. And then Jess now, who took over her position, he speaks very good English as well. And the other girls do as well. So I very rarely have to ask them what they mean about something. I usually can figure it out based on how they wrote it. So even, their notes and all that stuff like that, it's very clear, it's concise. They do write and speak good English. And so I don't have any issues with that at all with them. No barriers of communication or any of that sort of thing with them. It's all pretty seamless, actually.
Oh, that's great to hear. I'm sure Madeline would really want to hear or watch this testimonial video once posted. All right. Well,
I adored Madeline. She was amazing. I'm
yes,
so
I
proud
know
of her
she's
for
actually
getting a
doing
promotion.
great. Yeah, she's actually doing great in the team leader position. We're so glad to have her and have her train the new VAs. It's amazing.
Hmm. I bet she is a fantastic trainer. She was really, really, really good, and I could tell that out of all of them, she was on top of it. Always, always on top of it. Madeline was always on it. I always valued that about her, and I always felt like I could trust her to take care of things. She's very smart, and she takes the initiative and everything. So she definitely earned a promotion for sure.
Well, we were lucky that you approved to let her go. So
I know. Well, I can't do that to her. She deserves to move up, right? She earned it.
well,
So while I'm sad that we had to lose her, I mean, we adore Jess. So, it worked out. And I'm very happy that she's doing so well because she definitely earned that without a doubt. She works really hard. She definitely earned
all
it.
right. Thank you so much, Rhiannon.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're welcome.
another question for you. Since hiring the VAs, what specific improvements or positive outcomes have you noticed in your business? How do you feel their um, involvement has contributed to your business's growth or even the efficiency in your business?
So I will say that the biggest thing that has improved the most is the communication amongst the staff and even amongst my own schedulers. Their ability to pass off the notes and making sure that the staff is aware of certain things that had happened on their shift, it's absolutely priceless because it's actually closed the gap. So as far as caregivers go, because we have caregivers that provide services to seniors, sometimes they can feel like we're managing a bunch of toddlers and then they go from one parent to another parent to another parent to try and get what they want out of a situation. And because we have such a communicative team now, and especially with our weekly meetings and stuff like that, we're always in constant communication with each other. And then my schedulers will also pass up information to the on-call team, and give them a heads up like, hey, you may receive a call from this person. This is what's going on. And, vice versa and that sort of thing. So, and then I also sincerely appreciate the fact, I believe it was Crystalline, one of the caregivers did not show up a shift So the shift that she was supposed to work that night disappeared on our app. And on our end, she was scheduled for it, but then she ended up not showing up to her shift. The VA finally got a hold of her, and the caregiver was like, "Well, I don't have a shift tonight." And she was like, "No, you like it's here. You have a shift." And she, so she had the caregiver screenshot her app and send it to her, and then she ended up sending it to us, and she was like, "Hey," she was clearly scheduled in the schedule. She was like, "But this is the screenshot from her app. It does not show the shift." And so I was able to take that information to WellSky support and get it resolved and for future needs and that sort of thing. Even just little things like that, that they catch or they go, because I mean, I never told her to ask her for a screenshot of the caregiver's app. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, that was genius. Thank you. I didn't even have to tell you little things like that they catch and then they communicate it to us, and it makes all of our communication so much better, so much more seamless, and it actually reduces stress amongst the staff altogether because we all know that we're in communication with each other. No caregiver is going to call and get a different answer from a different person, because that person's not aware. Everybody's aware of what's going on in the information that's out there. The scheduling that has improved communication with the caregivers. Even our caregivers really enjoy the on-call team as much as they enjoy our daytime team. And so, it used to be when we had the other company, our caregivers would legitimately call in just during business hours just to speak to the daytime staff because they didn't want to speak to the on-call staff. And now I find that our caregivers are texting them on their line. They're communicating with them all the time. I mean, even to the point to where, your team is now forwarding the phone calls and stuff to us because, they're still reaching out to them during the day. Which is bad and good all at the same time, right? I mean, it's good that they've adopted them as much as they've adopted our daytime staff, and everybody has seamlessly worked together as a team. It honestly feels like we have additional 3 staff members on our staff, even if they're mainly there during the nights and weekends. It's just improved the environment overall. My schedulers know that if something happens on the weekend or if a last minute sort of care comes in, they know they can pass it off to the on-call team and they'll get it staffed. And the on-call team is now starting to know the caregivers just as well and the clients just as well as my daytime staff. So it's honestly just amazing. It really honestly is. It's absolutely it's like the best outcome I could have hoped for.
Oh, thank you so much, Rhiannon. All right. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I'm getting speechless from how much kind words are coming out of you. Yeah, I can't wait to show the team this recording and have it posted on our social media. So, Rhiannon, one last question, Rhiannon. If another home care business owner were considering hiring VAs but wasn't sure, what would you say to them about your experience with us?
I would tell them to give it a shot. Especially, I'd probably ask them some questions about their business, what they're struggling with, and then let them know what my experience is. Because the one thing that I value the most is that, the VAs don't really have a whole lot of restrictions on what they can do, how they can help, what they can help on, unlike other on-call services. So other on-call services, like I said, they work for multiple agencies. They are not dedicated to your company at all. When you hire VAs through Ascension, you are essentially adding to your team. You are adding team members to your team that are remote, that do not need to be watched because they're already being managed by other managers that take care of that to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Their stuff's recorded. Anybody can go into their systems and see their stuff, right? So I don't have to worry about that. I have team members that I actually don't really have to manage in the sense of like managing my own staff in the office. That alone is absolutely priceless because, like I said, the other companies, there's restrictions and limitations on what they can do. They are not going to staff in advance. They are not going to staff for you next week. They are not going to staff for you 24 hours in advance. They are not going to do that. They are not going to work on it. If got a phone call at noon about a call off for a shift the following day, you better get it staffed because that on-call company is not going to staff it for you. It has to happen within 2 hours of them coming on. And unlike with our VAs, we could get a call off in the morning and the girls are getting like 6 or 7 phone calls, call offs and trying to staff shifts. And there's one, shift that happens at noon the next day that they couldn't get to. They can pass that off to the VAs and the VAs will work on it and they'll get it staffed. for them. And they do a really good job. They understand how WellSky works. I've even gone through and shown them tips and tricks that they've taken with them and trained them even more on it. And so, that all in of itself is absolutely priceless because you're not going to get that with an on-call service. And so they're basically your personal assistants almost. And you can train them specifically to your agency because, like I said, every agency is different and no two agencies run exactly the same. And as somebody who's worked for a couple different ones, I can say that without a doubt they don't run the same. And so that's the most valuable part, is that you can train them to help your agency, not agencies across the board. And while parts of it may help agencies across the board, and agencies can train, other VAs can train with your VAs, the fact of the matter is that you're going to mold them into how to help your agency and how to help your agency grow. And so that honestly in of itself is worth every single penny. Because there is, as somebody who's gone through different on-call companies, different answering services, they're all bound by restrictions due to legalities and liabilities and whatever the case may be. And so they can only do so much. And then, like I said, they also don't just work for you. They usually work for 5 agencies at a time. So you're never going to get that specialized support. You're never going to get them to fully know your agency. You're never going to get them to be dedicated to your company and not get information, cross-wired between other agencies, which had happened with the other companies. I don't have to worry about that anymore. I know that they're specifically working for us and they're specifically helping us with staffing, and or even our open shift calendar looks the best it's looked in over a year. I attribute that to the fact that we have an absolutely fantastic on-call team that helps my daytime team with managing that. So insanely priceless, and I would recommend to any agency to sincerely look into it and give it a shot. And if the first VAs that you get don't work, then say something. And, and you guys will work to bring on different staff, and everything like that. And all the training that you've done, you don't have to repeat it. So I didn't have to do any of the same training that I had done originally with the staff when they got replaced. It was extremely seamless. And they all stepped in as if they had been working with us from the start. So I couldn't ask anything better. I am extremely, extremely, extremely happy. And that's why I recommend to all Always Best Cares, anybody who asks, because I've had quite a few people ask. That's why I always recommend you guys, because I'm like, well, and I always tell them, like, yeah, you're gonna have a lot of training to start with. The first week might be rough, or I think it's 1 or 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks, I think it is going to be a little rough. You're going to have to do a lot of training. I was, but after that, it calms down. And then, they work to fit in with your staff, and it actually works out just beautifully.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rhiannon.